Is your favorite game pay to win? And if it is, how can you know for sure the magical powers of money are indeed leading your opponents to mercilessly beat you, and it's not just a skill issue? Today, we use science to find out. First, let's try this on my favorite game, War Tycoon. Is War Tycoon pay to win? Yes. In fact, people who pay for weapons have double the survival odds when fighting other players. For those who don't play it, War Tycoon is a game where you build a military base and murder other players using your personal arsenal of tanks, jets, helicopters, and homicidal intent. People who play the game complain about the pay to win nature of the weapons, but opinions aren't facts, unless you're into politics. Yes, on paper, the weapons available through microtransactions are objectively stronger. So is it possible that sniper rifles as strong as missiles, tanks stronger than warships, and drones as strong as attack helicopters could be breaking the game? On the other hand, many say Game Passes actually don't allow bad players to pay money in exchange for an advantage, as you would think. Rather, people like this YouTube commenter defend Game Passes, saying that they simply allow bad players to pay money in exchange for an advantage. So, let's use science to factually settle this debate, and not through opinions, especially if you have the wrong opinions. And I already know some of you may feel the urge already to type a nerd emoji in the comments as a reflex. One way we can test something is observing the proportion or percentage of times something is seen out of a total. Like, out of 10 apples, how many are green? We divide our two numbers and we get a decimal, which we call p for proportion. In this case, out of a certain number of fights between a Game Pass and a regular weapon, how many times does the Game Pass win? A null hypothesis is just a default stance where some effect doesn't exist. Our null hypothesis will be that Game Passes don't give an advantage. So, we will see a 50-50 split where half the time the Game Passes win and half the time they lose, meaning p equals 1 half equals 0.5, equals everything is perfectly balanced, as all things should be. Our alternative hypothesis, also known as our claim, is that Game Passes will win fights more often than normal weapons, meaning this percentage or proportion will be larger than 1 half or zero point 0.5. Now, obviously, we aren't gods nor Santa Claus, and can't observe every single fight between a Game Pass and free to play weapon ever in history, but we can gather a sample of some of those fights. It's kind of like how you don't need to drink an entire bowl of soup to know what it tastes like. You can just drink a little spoonful and you'll pretty much know. For this to be accurate, certain conditions must be met, which we have. I won't go over them in detail, but feel free to pause if you want. Then we can use some math and statistics to analyze it. For now, though, let's go out into the game and watch people fight to the death and write down who wins. Cue the montage. So we managed to document 150 fights from more than 200 players across dozens of servers, and the data is in. Our sample showed that about 66% of fights between Game Passes and normal weapons or vehicles ended in a Game Pass victory. This means that just buying a Game Pass means you are twice as likely to win the fight compared to your regular opponent. Now, this is just our sample, which doesn't really mean anything yet. What if we, just by pure chance, witnessed a very unusual bunch of wins that isn't anything like the actual percent for the whole game? We need to analyze this, zoom it, and enhance it. We need the central limit theorem. Basically, we can find out how likely it is to have gotten a sample as spicy as ours if the Game Passes really weren't pay to win. And this is called the p-value. And if it is below our maximum of a 5% chance, then we can say pretty confidently the Game Passes are pay to win. After running the numbers, we calculated an abysmal p-value of 0.0044%. This means if the Game Pass users actually don't win more often than regular players in real life, there is only a 0.0044% chance of getting a sample with at least as many Game Pass victories as ours through a random coincidence. Now, this is way below our maximum of 5%, so we reject the null hypothesis, meaning we have convincing evidence that the Game Pass players really do win more often. But how much more often? We can run something called a 1 proportion z interval to find out, and here's what you'll find. From the math, we are 90% confident that true percent of victories by Game Pass players in battles between free-to-play and Game Pass players is between about 59.64% and 72.36%. TLDR, our sample is strong evidence that across the entire game, the Game Passes do give a significant leg up. There are a ton of ways the developers could create Game Passes that don't break the game. In fact, they already have. The Speedy Humvee is a thrill to drive. Speedy oil rigs make grinding much less painful. And custom camouflage increases your swag and girls by 150%. So here's my call to action. If you think your favorite game has become pay to win, use statistics like we did today and publish your results. You don't have to just complain. You can prove it.